Hi kids, Mr. Galvan again. Are you ready to do the next chapter? Chapter 15 from Bandit's Moon. I want to claim the reward. Here we go. I stood frozen. The newspaper was wrong. It must be. Plank was no gambler and he was no pickpocket. The article had got things horribly tangled up. Vamos, Joaquin was calling me. Let's go. But how had the newspaper got Lank's name so exactly right? He must have been riding in that coach, and he must have been the one shot dead. I was hardly 50 yards away when I heard the guns firing. Of course, Joaquin had done it. Vamos, Yankee. I should have burst into tears, but I was too shot through with anger and sudden hatred. I had been riding all over creation beside the man who had killed my brother. I steeled myself. I didn't say a word as we mounted up, Joaquin and Pio Pio and I. I didn't say a word all morning long. By the time we rode into Drizzly Gulch, I had made up my mind and what I was going to do. Hola, there's a chow chow chop across the way, said Joaquin, pointing to a small Chinese restaurant with iron shutters. We'll eat. I'm not hungry, I said, looking away. Eat with this villain? Again? Never. He shifted his gaze to me. Hey, you sick, Yankee? I shook my head. I'll look in the store window. I was sorry I said that, for he broke into an understanding smile. Ah, a new dress, eh? That's what you are starved for, eh? No, I protested. As we dismounted, he tossed me a pouch of gold dust. But whatever pleases you. Come along, Pio Pio. Off they strode through the iron door of the restaurant, and there I stood in the sun, the gold feeling as hot in my hand as if the devil himself had tossed it to me. I despised the bandit's generosity, but if I flung it back, he'd know something was brewing inside of my head. So I tied the gold sack up in the pillow slip under with my other valuables. I left the spotted horse and hurried down the street until I found the sheriff's office. A large blue-eyed man was sitting in the bentwood chair under the wooden awning out front. You the sheriff? I asked breathlessly. Yes, missy. Sheriff Elwood Flint. Folks around here call me Iron Eyes. You can too. I don't see any badge. Some feller stole it. Well, that hardly filled me with confidence, but his eyes did have a steely look, and maybe he'd show the necessary grit he'd have to do. Do you have a jailhouse? I asked. We use the one over in Bedbug. Are the walls good and solid? Stones a foot thick, he answered, and coughed out a small laugh. Who do you want me to lock up? Joaquin Murrieta himself? I want to claim the reward, I said. My heart was beating like a ratchet and my voice came out shaky. What reward? I took a deep breath all the way up from my toes. The reward for the capture of Joaquin, the most famous bandit. Yes, Joaquin Murrieta himself. You're a mite late, little missy. That rascal's dead and buried. Oh, no, he's not. He's sitting right up the street in the chow chow shop. You can't miss him. He's wearing a tall hat. You better get up a posse. I won't need a posse. Well, he'll be too clever for you, sir. That remains to be seen, don't it? You sure it's him? It could be some other Joaquin. Well, of course I'm sure. The name's common as fleets around these hills, he said with a snort. It's the genuine Joaquin I'm turning in, sir. No mistake about it. My name's Annie Rose Smith. Take that down, sir. I don't want any mistake about the reward money. Oh, well, said the sheriff, Iron Eyes Flint bestirring himself. I'll just amble up that way and catch him by surprise and march him off to the hoosegow. Of course, we'll have to share the reward, you and me. I was in no state to argue about it. There'd be enough left over to give my brother a decent burial. Agreed, he said. Agreed, I said. He spit out a wad of tobacco. I seen a posse of rangers scouting around these parts. The joke will be on them if I steal that big Mexican fish right out from under their noses. I waited until he finished chuckling at the glory, but then I asked, "How far off is Bedbug, sir?" "Just over that hill and down the road." I set off on foot. I couldn't ride that spotted horse Joaquin had given me. I no longer wanted it. I ran for a while, and my eyes began to swim. I didn't care to be close enough to hear any gunshots. Joaquin deserved what he would get at the hands of the law, but it left me with a sick feeling to have betrayed someone who trusted me. Did that make me no account and trashy like Mary? She'd do a thing like that. I tried not to think about Pio Pio. He looked too young to be an outlaw, and I hoped Sheriff Elwood Flint would just let him go. It frightened me to show my face in Bedbug. Someone might recognize me and try all over again to hang me for a horse thief. But I needed to explain and apologize to the man at the newspaper for deceiving him. So in I went, my tears wiped and drying. The editor was at his desk just as I had left him, and the tree stump hat square on his head. His bushy beard looked a little longer and even more tangled. "Hello, Mr. Yellow Bird," I said. "Maybe you remember me. I didn't steal the buckskin horse shirt, but that story I told about Joaquin being shot full of holes, that was hogwash." He looked at me, picked up his glasses, and looked again. "You should be tarred and feathered." "I know it, sir." "Were the bandit's gun and scarf left with me hoaxes too?" "No, sir," I said. "They were his. He said to give them to you." Amazement sprang up to his eyes. "You know Joaquin Murrieta? In person? The honest truth girl?" I nodded. "I've been traveling with him." "And Three-Fingered Jack?" "Murderers, both of them." He sharpened a pencil and hustled up paper to make notes. "Dear child, you must tell me all you know. What color are his eyes? Is he 6 foot tall? Have you ever seen him laugh? Do you know for a fact how he was wronged? And what was that name of yours?" "Annie Rose Smith." "Well, of course it is. Someone dropped off a letter for you a couple of days ago." Who could be writing me when I didn't know a soul? Mr. Yellowbird Ridge dug around in that stuffed cubbyhole of his desk and came out with an envelope sealed with a dab of red wax. I tore it open. "Dear sister, I have found you at last. Remain in Bedbug. I will return for you as soon as we finish this nasty business with the bandit, Joaquin Murrieta. I have joined the Rangers under Captain Love to track the ruffian down. They are paying me $150 a month. I enclose $10 for your keep until I see you again. Your devoted brother, Lank." My head spun. My knees buckled under me. This didn't read like a letter he'd written before his death. Hardly able to believe my eyes, I studied the date. Lank was alive. I didn't know how, but he was alive. The gambler who was killed certainly wasn't my brother. I stared at the date again. He had written this note only days before. I must have let out a thunderclap of surprise, for Mr. Yellowbird Ridge looked up as if I were having sudden fits. "Was the man who left the letter tall and loose-jointed and yellow-haired?" I cried out. "I believe he was." "That was my brother, Lank. Joaquin didn't shoot him dead at all. You were mistaken, sir." Suddenly, I must have gone white as cotton. What had I done? What would Joaquin think when he discovered I turned him in for the reward? I flew out the door. That's the end of chapter 15.